It can still be a great way to ground ourselves in our body, to process some emotion, and to just like feel more at home with ourselves. Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for coming back if you've been here before, or hi, welcome if you're new. My name is Mickey. I'm a therapist, and we talk about therapy things on this channel. Today, we are talking about my tips for managing mental illness outside of therapy. I get a lot of questions about this, and to be clear, there are very much things that are best worked through in therapy with a professional. Blah, blah, blah. You get it. I'm a therapist. I'm obviously going to recommend that you guys go to fucking therapy. However, I think there are also wonderful things that we can add as a complement to therapy, or things that we can add into our life if we aren't able to access therapy, or we're taking a break from therapy, or like whatever. People are in therapy, out of therapy, like our involvement with that ebbs and flows over time for lots of different reasons. And so I want to talk about these things today for all of those reasons. But if you're new here, hi, thanks for coming. You should subscribe. It really does help support me and the channel and the work that we're trying to do here. And I appreciate you being here, so thanks. Okay, before we get into the list, as a quick disclaimer, I want to be super clear. All of the content on this channel and in this video especially is intended to be for broad strokes education and learning. None of the content on this channel is therapy, is a replacement for therapy. It never has been and never will be. And it's illegal to try to do that. So that's not what we're doing here. However, if you do need a therapist or a higher level of care, there are always links in the description for you to go find one. So please use those if you need them. Thing number one is probably not going to be the funnest suggestion that I have, but hear me out. I think it's important. Thing number one on this list is to practice sitting with your discomfort. The reason that I want to encourage people to do this is because a lot of the work that we do in therapy is talking about stuff that brings up big feelings. And so first of all, this is an excellent skill to practice and to have just like in your back pocket generally. But also if we are going to be in therapy, or again, if we're taking a break from therapy and just need some time, blah, 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 whatever, it's good to be able to notice, how am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And to practice staying with that emotion. It's very, 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 very common for us, especially in the way that the world is, to move away or like have a lot of discomfort or difficulty with sitting with our emotions, especially in like validating that, like, yes, I am in fact feeling this way. I am allowed to feel this way, and I can welcome this feeling and let it in without that meaning that this feeling is going to like unpack its shit and live in my spare bedroom for the rest of my life. Oftentimes there's like a fear that if I acknowledge this, validate this, and like move towards the feeling, that it's going to swallow me whole. This is a thing that can keep us stuck, and it's also just like super uncomfy. So there's lots of different ways to do this. I don't have time to get into the whole like how-to of sitting with discomfort right this moment, but I do want to encourage people to practice this, because also there's lots of resources on this channel and on the internet generally for how to do this. So if you're able to, and you are again wanting to work on yourself, practice sitting with your discomfort. Thing number two is movement. I know that people oftentimes will recommend like exercise or going for a little walk. And these are great. These are wonderful. But I do also just want to talk about the use of movement generally, for processing our feelings, for letting us like work through stuff. But it doesn't necessarily have to look like exercise, going to the gym, like yoga, whatever. Like, don't get me wrong. Again, all of those things are valid and helpful, but there's other ways to do this that are more approachable, that are more accessible, and also more fun. Mindful and like joyful movement can also include dancing. This can also just include like a quick little stretchy stretch. This can include sex if you want it to. This can include, again, like going for a little walk, going to the gym, things like that. But this can also just include like taking a lap around your house or your apartment, taking your pets for a walk, going outside in your backyard and just having lizard time. Like, these are all ways that we can move our bodies and connect with our physical selves that don't have to be, first of all, steeped in diet culture bullshit, but second of all, come along with some expectation of like completing a thing. You can just dance along to the intro of your favorite TV show, and that still counts as movement and can still be a great way to ground ourselves in our body, to process some emotion, and to just like feel more at home with ourselves. So I want to encourage people to embrace that, to practice that, and to also unlearn whatever expectations we have about how movement is supposed to look. Thing number 3 is to practice journaling. I know that this is also a very cliche therapist recommendation, but again, hear me out. The reason that I recommend this is because oftentimes we have a lot of stuff that's bubbling just under the surface that we tell ourselves, like, yeah, I've processed that, I've worked through that. But we can do this in a way that's like kind of sneaky, where like, yes, maybe you've thought about it, maybe you had a conversation about it with a safe or trusted loved one, but have you like really aired out all of the stuff there? And so journaling can be a great exercise in that, because even if you're just sitting and writing, like, I don't know what to write, I don't know how I feel, blah, blah, blah. Oftentimes the report that myself and other therapists get from clients when we encourage folks to practice this is like, wow, there was a lot more that came out than I was initially expecting, or like, I didn't even really have anything on my mind. And then I journaled 10 pages. So I do want to encourage people to practice this, again, if you are feeling called to this or it's helpful to you, especially because the idea that journaling has to equal like a notebook and a pen isn't true. Journaling can also be writing in your notepad on your phone. It can also be recording voice memos to yourself. It can be recording videos on your phone to have like a little video diary for yourself. There's lots and lots and lots of different ways that we can practice what is essentially journaling, but just in different formats that are more accessible or like more attainable for folks. And so practice whatever is most like calls to you the most. But I do want to encourage folks to give themselves the space to verbalize and like mostly to externalize all of the stuff that's like going on everywhere. It feels good to put it somewhere, because it also can serve like a really wonderful purpose of helping us feel like we've released it, like we put it somewhere, and now we can sort of like close the lid on that. Like, thank you very much for your service. Like, please go away now. Not that we want to distance ourselves from our emotions, to be super clear. They're important and they're necessary, but also you don't need to be wearing them around your neck all the time. And so it's perfectly fine to feel that sense of satisfaction about like, whew, like, okay, great. I got that off my chest. I'm gonna put that in a box and she can go live over there for now. So again, just practice that in whatever way feels like accessible or whatever calls to you the most. Thing number 4 is community. The reason that I bring this up is because there is like a cliche in the like mental health affirmation world that really pushes my fucking buttons. People say the phrase a lot that like you have to learn how to love yourself before you can love others or before you can expect someone to love you. I hate this. This hurts my feelings. This hurts the feelings of lots of other people. It's also not founded in what we know from the clinical research and like clinical practice as a therapist. The reality is that a lot of healing, if not most healing, happens in community and through relationships, because if we're having a hard time loving ourselves or feeling at home with ourselves, having someone be supportive, be loving, share community with you is a really great way to help us unlearn that. It's also just unrealistic, I think, to expect that we as individuals should shoulder the burden of all of our healing and all of our growth without involving other people. Like, that's not fair. And that's also just not how humans work. Like, when we look at anthropology and the way that people evolve, like, we are very much intended to be part of community, to share space and connection and love and relationships with people. So free yourself of that expectation and allow yourself to participate in community in whatever way that looks like for you. Obviously, this looks like friends and family if those are things that are safe and supportive for you, but this can also look like digital community. This can also look like support groups and things like that. The organization that I'm actually fundraising for this month, NAMI, is one of my favorite resources to recommend to folks because they are a great option for finding local community resources, either in support groups, but also in like peer support and advocacy groups, and in like educating ourselves about mental illness generally. And so the link for that is also in the description, by the way, if you need it. But I do just very much want to encourage people to remember that community exists in lots of different ways. And while it can be intimidating to try to find it, it is still probably more accessible to you than you might think it is when we unlearn these ideas of like what community is supposed to look like. Okay, thing number 5 is co-regulation. This is like a fancy therapy word for essentially involving another person in helping us to regulate our nervous system. Commonly, the recommendations for this look like sharing physical space or affection with a pet or with a loved one. I know that it seems maybe kind of silly or simple to recommend a hug or holding or petting one of your pets, but we know from the research that this is actually a very, very powerful way to help regulate our nervous systems. When someone that we love is in a calm space and their heart rate is normal, their blood pressure is normal, their body is relaxed, hugging them, sharing physical space with them in whatever way feels safe for you can actually go a long way in helping to send the message to our nervous system that you're safe, it's okay, we can bring things back to our typical level of functioning, and that obviously goes a long way in helping us feel better. So don't be afraid to ask people for a quick little handhold or a snuggle or a cuddle. And again, like holding pets, petting our pets, and like animals and stuff is also a great way to practice this. However, even for folks who don't have pets or don't have a loved one available to cuddle on right this moment, squishmallows, comfy blankets, those kinds of things can also serve a similar purpose. The last thing that I want to mention is creative outlets. The reason that I bring this up is because it is very important for us to have outlets as people to be creative and to express ourselves, but also because oftentimes mental illness and like anxiety and depression in particular can cause us to feel very bogged down. Creative outlets are a great way for us to not only disconnect a little bit from the like doom and gloom and fear feeling that mental illness can bring us, but also to remind us of our whole and complex personhood. And again, it's a great entry point for finding community and stuff like that. I know that some of the folks watching this video might feel like, okay, Mickey, that's great, but I'm not a creative person, so this isn't helpful advice. But hear me out. Creativity doesn't have to just look like drawing, painting, sculpting, like art, although it certainly can, and those are really wonderful vehicles for that. But it can also look like doing a little DIY or a craft or cooking or baking, even reading, interior decorating, or like setting up a new room or a room in a new way, D&D, cosplay, dancing, consuming creative media, like all of those types of things can also serve the purpose of creating a creative outlet. And so I want to encourage folks to be creative in finding a creative outlet for yourself. And again, to free ourselves of this expectation that it has to look a particular way, because it doesn't. Creativity could be painting rocks or, again, just like rearranging the furniture in your room if that's fun for you. And again, it can serve a really valuable purpose in helping us to be grounded, to disconnect from the feelings of sadness like we talked about. And again, also like a great entry point for community also. I know that working through mental illness and like growing to be our best versions of ourselves is a lot, and it can feel really overwhelming sometimes. So I do want to also remind folks to be nice to yourselves, to practice some patience. The thing that I say to my clients all the time is that change happens in the same way that our hair grows. If you stand in front of the mirror every day and you look at it, you're not going to notice that it's happening. But 6 months from now, a year from now, you might be like, oh my God, my hair is really long and I didn't realize that happened. So be patient, be kind to yourself, because the work that you're putting in does matter. You matter. And ultimately, we are all worthy of love and belonging. And so, it will add up to something. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We make content like this, but we also talk about a cute pop culture moment every now and again. So I'd love to have you stay and share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. And I will see you guys next Saturday.